Alright, we're back with some more Resident Evil Requiem news where the devs talk more about the new dynamic enemies and how there may be more than just human zombies. They also talk about Leon and Grace's progression systems, and they address the speculation that the game could be open world. So, let's talk about it. Alright, so the final previews for RE Requiem have officially landed, and with it come a bunch of new interviews and QAs with the game's developers. And our first one comes to us from Ralph of Gamer Braves, who sat down with the game's producer Masato Kumazawa and the director Koshi Nakanishi. And we start off first with those new dynamic zombies. Nakanishi would go on to say, "We've probably taken all the inspiration from previous entries into an RE series. And as I mentioned in a few questions before, we kind of decided to take a step back and retrace our roots into how the series was before. We tried to lean more into the mainstream games with 7 and 8. The development team actually thinks that since they have been creating the RE series for quite a long time, players have been really accepting how the zombies look in Resident Evil games. But when we add this level of unpredictability by adding different versions of zombies, like a zombie that was previously a cook and he has his knife and doing things with his knife, or a zombie that is cleaning inside of the clinic center, you can kind of see that each zombie has a sort of level of unpredictability to their actions, and it amplifies the level of horror. Since players cannot just blindly rush zombies and go past them, they have to actually think about what each zombie does, and sometimes be scared about some of the things they are doing." He continues by saying outside of the human-like zombies, we'll also have other zombie types, maybe dogs. You'll have to see inside the game, but rest assured that not all zombies are the human type. Not all zombies are the human type. So this is pretty cool. Essentially, these zombies are kind of an amalgamation of all of the zombie archetypes they've had since probably the beginning of Resident Evil. And while they are technically going back to their roots of just bringing back zombies, they're also able to evolve them because of the virus that is now affecting them, still leaving a lot of their human side left intact, at least up in the brain. And that I really appreciate because it changes, again, the predictability of what these enemies can actually do. And based on some of the preview footage that Game Informer and some other content creators have put out there, you see this all over. There's one zombie in particular who was a lounge singer, and she goes up to Grace and grabs her and screeches in her face because that's what she knows to do. She was a singer, so that's her form of attacking. We see that butcher guy with the huge cleaver just swinging it around like crazy. But the fact that it's not just, oh, here are some new zombie types that you can run past. No, their behavior patterns do change in each area, so they're not going to do the same thing twice. So it's not a situation of, okay, I just ran past these enemies and they were doing one thing, and when I come back I just swing around this way and I'll avoid them. No, they're going to be changing up how they move, how they attack, and this is really, really cool. It's a really great way to freshen up the enemies of the RE series and make it way more fun to play, make it way more dynamic. So they've added a completely new level of strategy that you as the player now have to consider when dealing with these enemies. And the types of enemies. We got the human-like zombies, obviously. They teased that maybe there could be zombie dogs, and the fact that we're going back to Raccoon City, it just kind of makes me wonder, could there have been anything that survived the destruction of that city? Maybe we could see some lickers come back. Maybe we could see some tyrants return. Maybe we will see big, massive tarantula zombie spiders make their return as well. I would have to assume that those types of zombies will probably make a return. This is us going back to Raccoon City, man. You gotta have like Resident Evil's greatest hits, but updated. Now, what about character progression? So in this interview, they do say that for Grace, she will be receiving antique coins and booster shots that will make her stronger and allow her to upgrade her weapons as well. However, for Leon, his will be a little bit different, and unfortunately, they don't go into detail with that stuff in particular. But they do tease that a lot of it will be similar to Resident Evil 4, where Nakanishi goes on to say, his version of leveling up is quite similar to the system in RE4, which means that he will be able to customize his weapons, add different conditions on them, and make them stronger. So his upgrade path will be more in that approach. And the whole upgrade progression system I'm actually still very curious about because the developers have said in the past that there will not be a merchant in this game. So I'm curious as to how and who, or maybe who, will be helping upgrade our weapons. Now for a character like Leon, he's pretty capable. I'm sure he could find things within the environment and just upgrade them on the fly. So maybe there's just an option within your menu of being able to go in and upgrade your weapon, because in some of these preview shots, we do see the characters pick up guns, and they do have stats like power, stability, precision, rate of fire, ammo capacity, and reload speed, which are all things we've been accustomed to in previous Resident Evil games. We just had a merchant to upgrade it for us. So I don't know if it will be exactly like how it was in RE4, where you had somebody, or, you know, in this case, Leon upgrading those weapons, or maybe you're finding attachments throughout the environment like you did in the older Resident Evil games. Like, for example, if you had the shotgun, you could find an extended barrel for it, or if you had the lightning hawk, you could also, you know, find like extensions for that to make it more powerful. You could make your regular handgun be semi-automatic. So I'm curious to know if maybe there will be like upgrade stations in certain areas that the characters, or at least Leon, can utilize to improve his arsenal. Hello everyone, Future Corduroy here, and while I was editing the video, I came across the PlayStation blog preview for Resident Evil Requiem, and they had a few extra details that I missed in the original edit of my video. First off, yes, Leon will use the attaché case. He'll also be able to craft items and ammunition with scrap and other items he finds around the environment. He'll also be able to find attachments for his gun to improve the stats of those guns. He can also craft hand grenades. And according to the PlayStation blog, he can literally duct tape 2 grenades together for an extra big boom, which sounds pretty cool. Now, as far as the upgrades for the weapons go, again, they don't really dive into it on there either. They just said it's pretty much going to be like RE4, but Capcom is still kind of tight-lipped on that. And funny enough, they do explain why Leon no longer uses his signature combat knife and instead has traded it in for the hatchet, and it's because he's more experienced now. So they felt that him using a weapon like a hatchet just kind of showed how much better he was as a fighter. So just wanted to update you guys on that, because I didn't want to miss out on some information I had speculated on in this video that had, you know, gotten answered somewhere else. So now back to the regular scheduled video. They continue by saying something you might have noticed, you might have not, but actually in the gameplay that you experienced, Leon had quite a lot of space left in his inventory. So as the story progresses, he will receive more and more different things, ammunition, weapons, whatever you can name. So the resource management aspect will also be properly implemented in Leon's part, which I love. And again, it looks like the resource management is going to be, you know, two polar opposites here. You've got Grace, who is more of the RE2 style, much slower. You have to be a bit smarter with your resources because there won't be as many. So hers is very much, okay, I found some ammo, great. I found an herb, lovely. But for Leon, if they're pulling more from RE4, it kind of makes me wonder, will he still have the attaché case, which allows you to customize how you store your weapons, I don't know if they're gonna have grenades in this game, probably not, but all of your resources, which was really fun and almost kind of like a mini game in and of itself back in the day. And I think there was even some fans that made an RE4 inspired resource management game that you can play for free, where the whole aspect is to rearrange your items and progress to the next level. It's pretty cool. But again, with Leon being the action guy, it makes sense. He's going to get more of the heavy weapons. That's the stuff he's going to be able to utilize a lot more. So I'm very curious to see what other weapons he will be coming across in this game. Handguns, shotguns, obviously. One of the shotguns actually does look similar to the one that Ada uses. So maybe that was a gift from her. We don't know. Now, how about that blood and gore? That is something that's always been a part of Resident Evil. It's just kind of part of the story. You've got these creatures and zombies that naturally are going to bleed and lose body parts. A lot of times it's just like how it is. But turns out when it comes to the gore and the execution stuff we see from Leon, there's actually some story reasons behind it. Nakanishi goes on to say, you've probably seen, maybe even tried it during the gameplay, when you play with Leon and use this hatchet on the enemies and basically slash up the heads of enemies. The grotesque expressions inside the game are quite a big factor for Leon's part, and it's a way to express Leon's struggles internally. It's actually really a sort of way to show how he has been really just exhausted with all the years of struggling with RE and grouped up with different biohazards, and he's just really sick of it. So yeah, that's pretty plainly yes. It's an important point for RE Requiem in that regard, which I love. That's a very Capcom thing to do. It's not just, hey, let's have Leon come back and do some cool stuff just because it's cool. They put a lot of thought into why he's moving and operating the way he does. So now it's not just, oh, he's super experienced, that's why he's pulling off all these maneuvers and can use all of these weapons. It's like, no, this guy is tired. He is fed up. He has had it up to here with this crap. So naturally, he's going to be way more aggressive when it comes to how he handles the enemies. And we see that in the gameplay. Kicking a zombie in the stomach, super hard. Crushing a zombie's head against a shelf. Sneaking up on a zombie and just cutting their head off with his tomahawk hatchet. He's tired, but he knows how to effectively take these things out in the simplest manner possible. It just happens to be really, really gory and super violent. So it's cool. It's not just gore for gore's sake. Like, there's a reason why Leon is seemingly much more violent and capable in this game. It's not just a cool factor, it's a character thing. Now, this is really interesting. In this game, obviously Grace and Leon will meet up in certain sections, but that also means that they will be retracing each other's steps in some areas. And what's cool is you go through an area first as Grace. If there are enemies there that might be a bit too tough or you just don't want to deal with them, you can run past them. But when you go back to Leon and you go through said area, those enemies will still be there, and some of them can even mutate. So the fact that you can actually just leave enemies there and be like, you know what, I'm Grace, I don't have a lot of resources, maybe I can run past this thing and hope for the best, and then when I come back as Leon, I can get that catharsis. That enemy that scared me or tripped me up or maybe almost killed me, I can now take you out John Wick style with Mr. Leon S. Kennedy. But the term they used here of sometimes these enemies might mutate is super cool. My initial thought was maybe like a Las Plagas situation like RE4, where if you wounded an enemy and they were on the ground, they'd start violently shaking. And that meant they were going to mutate and their head was going to transform and they were going to get tentacles with blades on them. It was a mess. But since we're going back to Raccoon City, and since the area that we seem to be exploring isn't too far from Raccoon City, it kind of makes me wonder, will those enemies mutate into Crimson Heads? Will the Crimson Heads come back? Those were terrifying in Resident Evil Remake. You dealt with a zombie, you left the area, you came back, the body was still there. Which for many of us, we thought, oh, maybe that's just a new realistic mechanic that they've added into RE Remake. You kill a zombie, the body doesn't disappear, it just stays there. But then you run past it and you hear, or some sort of weird noise, and it reanimates into this reddish, more violent, scarier zombie that is quicker, does way more damage. And the only way you can prevent that is by burning the body. So perhaps those Crimson Heads are back and they've evolved. So maybe it's best to try and take them out with Grace first, so you're not going to struggle as much later with Leon. But that's a really cool mechanic, and it's cool how, again, all of this stuff is connected. The behaviors are going to be different. You probably won't interact with a zombie the same way twice. So the prospect of all that stuff and maybe the Crimson Heads coming back as like an evolved 2.0 version, pretty cool. And to close out the video, we jump over to Game Informer, where Wesley LeBlanc also got to chat with the developers. And here, Wesley points out that in his playthrough of the demo, he noticed that the zombie with the chainsaw dropped the chainsaw, and as other zombies approached it, they were then damaged by the chainsaw that was still on, spinning on the floor. So what does that mean for weapons within Requiem? Nakanishi says, using enemy weapons is a pretty big feature of gameplay, so being able to use enemy weapons against them is also going to be something that you'll see come up beyond the sections that you've played as well, which is pretty cool. Again, I think it's just Leon that's going to be able to utilize these weapons. We've already seen him use the chainsaw, but we see that big butcher guy and he's got a huge cleaver. So can we pick up that cleaver and use it? What other weapons could we potentially get our hands on to do some really cool damage to these newer zombies? That's pretty fun. Now, we talked about blood and gore recently, the motivations behind Leon's gameplay being much more violent. We see in that January showcase that Grace is able to pick up blood and craft it into what is essentially a one-hit kill syringe on zombies, making them explode. How did that come to be? Well, apparently, the devs were like, you know what? We always have a lot of blood in this game. Why don't we find a way to utilize all of the blood that gets spilled? Which is how the synthesis mechanic came into play, which is kind of funny. They were just being creative, like, let's use this blood in some fashion. What they do point out though is that once you pick up blood, you put it in the injector and you create that one-hit kill weapon, the enemy that you then kill explodes into a big flood of blood. The blood that comes from those enemies cannot be used again for synthesis. So it's a cool way to balance this incredibly devastating weapon to where you can't just kill an enemy, pick up the blood, use it again. It's not broken. So you're gonna have to be a little bit smart about how you utilize it and to be aware that, yeah, I'm not gonna be able to use that blood again. Now, to end the video and to end the interview, Nakanishi actually addresses something that's been going around on the internet, some rumors and speculation that me and other content creators have put out there of, could there be open world aspects to this game? Leon gets a Porsche, we see him driving it around. Could there be sections where maybe we do that? Turns out, no. So Nakanishi goes on to say, the dev team did just want to make clear one point. They've seen some speculation on whether there's any open world elements in the game, and they just want to set the record straight that this isn't an open world game. The main concept behind this game is combining the very different gameplay of Grace and Leon into a cohesive package, and having those two gameplays represent the RE series. And I think when you play the game, you'll realize that. Or you will find as well that the development team picked the best approach to this. So it's nice of them to clear that up. Again, we do know that, in the inception of creating this game, they had a thought of making an open world game, which they scrapped. So to know that there isn't even any open world elements in this game is pretty interesting. It doesn't need it. It's Resident Evil. You're in a confined space. You explore these different areas. I don't know if open world would really work for this story. And again, previous RE games have had open world-esque elements to them, RE4 in particular, although those are more like zoned areas, not really open world, but there's like connected zones, so to speak. But for them to clear that up, that's cool. And of course, we do see cutscenes of Leon driving in the Porsche. We see him get out of it in the city environment. We see him driving to Raccoon City, but that's probably all just going to be in-game cutscene stuff. No open world aspects to Requiem. So with that being said, that is the video. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys thought of what we covered in today's video. Are you excited to encounter these new dynamic zombies that are a little bit more human-like with their behaviors? Do you have any predictions on what you think might return as an enemy? Maybe a licker, a hunter, a spider, a tyrant? Let me know in the comments down below. I am Curious Corduroy. I will see you guys in the next video. Please remember to always be excellent to one another.